Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's having a great Monday. It's getting dark early again, but welcome to the Week Ahead News Show. This is episode 31, day I was born on. And welcome. It is October 6th, 2025. Week Ahead News Show with me, Liam, and my good friend Tommy.
Thanks for having me again. Hard to believe we're already on episode 31. I had a good day today, and I'm saying that I was out, I was running errands, I was doing chores, and I did not encounter any National Guard troops. So I'm counting that today as a victory. I was able to go about my day uninterrupted from authoritarian quote unquote law enforcement quote unquote. So yeah, happy to be here. Happy to not be seeing the National Guard in Northeast Ohio. We got a good show.
Yep, crime has been a little crazy here too, so I'm not surprised. Let me make sure I updated for weather. What is it? 69 right now. I'll go through weather real quick, and then Tommy will go through
Nice.
stocks. Let me put my mic down a little bit for you guys. Today our high was 81. We'll get another heat. Low is 50. It was sunny. Tomorrow 84. It's almost a summer again. Low of 54. Cold though. It's cold in the morning. Then it gets hot midday. Hot after work. Cold at night. Tuesday we'll have light rain though. 69.51. Getting down for that high. We won't be having the typical heat that we were used to. We're getting into cold weather now. Like I said, late rain, so that'll kind of be eh. Wednesday we'll have sunny again, 61, 38. Thursday, 62, 36. Getting in the 30s. Woo, that's chilly. Friday, 68, 37, sunny. Saturday, partly cloudy, 70, 39. Sunday, partly cloudy, 71, 42. So plants ain't gonna like that. Make sure you're putting them inside. Let me check real quick before we go on a little bit more, Tommy, about some detailed weather. I know tomorrow is our full moon, if I'm not mistaken. Um, yep, next full moon's in the
It is a
day.
super.
We're at 100% illumination, which basically, yeah, that's what gives us the super moon. Because we could still
Yeah.
see a full moon, even though it's not at a full moon. Because it's at 100% illumination. So that's lit. Yeah, that's for like 3 days, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was out today running some errands, and I was looking up, and I'm like, man, that moon's crazy. It's just up in the sky, crazy.
When I was coming home from my meeting, it was already dark and it was very bright. Our air quality is good, about at 48. UV index right now 0. Obviously, it's dark out. Humidity at 69. The dew point was at 58 right now. Sunset. Our first lights at 6:57. Sunrise today was at 7:50. Sorry, 7:25 a.m. Sunset was at 6:55 p.m. and last light was at 7:23. With about 11 hours and 30 minutes of total daylight. Getting dark. Don't like that. Um, no rain today. We have our daily stocks above. And Tommy will be going over the last week or last 5 days stocks.
Stocks are actually up, which is kind of crazy. I'm so used to, you know, reporting negative stocks, but last 5 days the Dow was up 412 points, 0.89. S&P was up 84 points, 1.26. Nasdaq is up 361 or 1.6%. So things are trending upwards. It's going to be interesting to continue to follow the stocks and just sort of the broader economy as the government shutdown sort of looms on as the instability that's playing out in our country continues to play on, go on. That's not going to be good for the economy. So, but as things set right now, stocks are up, and but we'll keep an eye on it.
Yep, looks like today the Dow was negative 0.14 points. Nasdaq was up 0.17. Russell was up 0.41. S&P 500 was up 0.36. So small gains today. It was funny because, like you're saying, like with the government shutdown, sometimes the stocks don't do too well, but right now they're doing well. They're happy with the government shutting themselves down.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You'd kind of expect that with the shutdown, the stocks would be in the red, but that very well could still play out. We'll just have to see.
Yep, sorry about that. I was messing with you. I wanted to make sure like your mic volume was all good. Once again, hope everyone's enjoying the content. You drop a like. We have a Facebook in the description. We'll be going into our funny topic of the day, which is about how a Kristi Noem was denied bathroom access on a recent trip in Illinois. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and her staff attempted to enter a municipal building in Broadview, a Chicago suburb, so they could use the restroom. A video posted on social media shows them approaching the door and asking the restroom access. A person inside replied, "No, you cannot," refusing entry. Noem publicly condemned for denial, calling it shameful and blaming Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and local officials. She noted that Broadview receives substantial federal funding each year. That's sad. You can't really say, "Oh, this place ain't let me take a piss," but you use federal funding. That doesn't really go to that pisser. Um, and she was talking about how, in the video I watched, she was like, a lot of communities are welcoming us, but for some reason this one's just bad. They don't want us here, all this crap. Playing a victim while trying not to piss herself, so that's kind of funny. Village officials countered that Noem visited unannounced, claiming she had asked to see the mayor, but the mayor was away. They also said that the video doesn't serve a full context. Broadview officials say the bathrooms are nearby. There are bathrooms at a nearby ICE facility where Noem was visiting. Were not available either, actually. Yep. Pritzker responded by criticizing Noem's approach and asserting that she ought to face public scrutiny for what she's doing, and I kind of agree with that. If people don't want you around them, they're allowed to say that, and we do have free choice. Um, Especially with the federal government, even with the state government, if you don't want their help. What seems to be a simple request turned into a political flashpoint. Kind of small, though. It just shows how tired Americans are of ICE. A lot of Americans. I wish people around here did that. Restroom access can become a big symbolic issue versus local and federal authority. This is my local shitter, not my federal shitter. Incident highlights how even everyday needs like using a bathroom can be politicized in tense environments, and we know how the right's politicizing everything right now, especially around immigration enforcement. It also underscores the scrutiny on public officials' behavior. Um, while on the move, unannounced visits, optics, and messaging all play big roles. Once again, if she's unannounced, just showing up, "Hey, let me use your bathroom." I mean, that kind of just shows how these federal people are with it. Like even the locals and these local governments, they don't really show them respect. They don't really care. I don't really like that. So, my opinion would be the same. I don't want ICE in my town. If I was mayor, I would do the same thing, and I wouldn't be telling my police to cooperate with them and all that jazz. Like they will always say, federal funding, federal funding. My response would be, "Well, you're voters, you're voters." Like, hey, if you want them to vote blue, say that. Me as mayor, I would switch so quick, like a light switch. But what's your input on this, Tommy?
So I don't know. I really hate Kirsten Adobe. I was watching this video because you were telling me about it. I was watching it before the show, and she's walking up, and the guy's like, "You can't get in here," and she's walking away, and I just feel like I'm being gaslit by watching this video. She's walking away. She's like, "We're just trying to conduct operations here." Operations? It's like you're in Chicago. You're in the United States. Stop acting like you're in Baghdad. Stop acting like you're in Tehran. You're in a major American city, but Kirsten Adobe's like, "We're out here conducting operations."
Yeah.
Like what operation? Like, is this an active war zone? It's not an active war zone. It's just insane. So I'm just watching
And
this
Tommy, like,
video.
what happened in Chicago? They raided a ton of like, not even immigrant apartments. They raided a
Yeah.
ton of black apartments, where even like 10-20% of the population was immigrant, and they were arresting a lot of American citizens. Same with Hispanic communities in Chicago. What's really
Absolutely.
sad is that they didn't let her know they were coming, because if I was Mayor Tommy, I'd have a big ass sign, "No horses allowed." And then when she tries to come in, I'd be like, "Kristi, do you read the sign? Can you read the sign?"
You read this.
Because to me, she looks like a freaking horse. She got that woman horse face. Some women do have that face, that they kind of look horsey. She had so much plastic surgery, she looked like a horse, bro. I can't.
So the thing with Kristen Nomi is just the way she keeps trying to insert herself into sort of everything that involves ICE, everything that involves sort of any sort of immigration issue. Like we've seen we've seen this over and over and over again. We've seen it, satirized on South Park. She's like, like there's Kirsten Nomi right in front of the press conference. She's wearing like what is it, the bulletproof vest. She's holding an AR-15 or whatever.
And her face is
And
falling off.
her face is falling off. Yeah, it's just crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. And I think what the secretary needs to understand, along with the people like Stephen Miller and all these very evil, 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 evil people who are doing this sort of this ICE stuff, is I don't know how very clear people can make it to these people that people don't want ICE in their communities. You know what I mean? Like, but they keep coming, they keep coming, they keep coming. Another photo op, another Kirsten Nomi gaslighting session. Nobody wants you here, ICE. Stay away. And by the
Yep.
way, maybe try a McDonald's to go to the bathroom like everybody else.
Heck
Like
yeah. Yeah, a gas station.
a gas station, a McDonald's, like you know what I mean? It's crazy. And I saw on the news, the right wingers were blowing this up, and you know, ultimately, the, at its core, it's not really a big deal that Kirsten Novi wasn't able to use the bathroom. What is kind of funny was people were rude to her. I think that's kind of, um, of course, the broader story is just that, ICE, people don't want ICE in their communities, and rightfully so.
Yeah, agreed. I'm not a big fan of it. Especially places like Chicago, these liberal areas. Dude, there's never been a time. There's been some times where the federal government has stepped in like this, National Guard, but not really ICE. Back in the 50s, they tried to detain people. Local governments could say no.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? There's nothing
and
wrong with that. That's the power of
I'm
government.
happy, I'm happy you mentioned that too because, and I could talk about this a little bit more with the National Guard thing. We look, historically, when the National Guard has been activated and stuff like that. It was in response to, enforcing a ruling from the Supreme Court of the United States when it comes to, school integration, for instance. You know, there has been times in the past, where the National Guard has correctly been federalized, but that is not now.
Yep, agreed. It's
Uh,
very
there
authoritarian
are
for
there
a
there
lot
are
of
historic
reasons.
there there are historical analogs out there of the feds needing to come into the cities, coming into the states. Um, but that is not what's going on right now.
Yep, and like from them hiding people, or just how like 1/3 of all of the people at Alligator Alcatraz have been lost in the system.
Yeah.
I need to look that up and see if there's been a response to that because that was just crazy. Um, so there's a lot of dirty things going on. Tommy will be going into a National One topic. I'm gonna go grab a cough drop real quick, but you can keep talking, Tommy. I'll be quick.
Yep. Okay, so our first national topic today: court fight continues as Trump sends California National Guard to Oregon, and also going on right now, like concurrently, is the troops going into Chicago. So on September 28th, the Trump administration attempted to federalize and deploy the Oregon National Guard to Portland in response to protests. The move was done over the objections of Oregon Governor Tina Kotek, according to the state. According to the state and the city, the protests were small and peaceful, but Trump overrode the governor and deployed the troops. In response, Oregon and Portland filed a suit arguing that the federal government was overreaching, and a Trump-appointed U.S. Federal judge issued a temporary restraining order, a TRO, blocking the deployment, and she pointed to several legal constraints. And also noted that the president's narrative of Portland as a war zone was unrelated to facts. So after this ruling, the administration attempted a workaround, deploying California and Texas National Guard troops to Oregon. So the initial order, only seemingly applied to Oregon National Guard troops. So in an attempt to circumvent, at the very least, the spirit of the order, um, they deployed California, Texas National Guard troops. So um, So then on October 5th, so yesterday, in a hastily convened telephone hearing, the judge then expanded her order to say no National Guard troops from any state may be deployed to Oregon under federalization. And she
Heck yeah.
chastised the government's legal team. Okay, so reactions from state officials, and so of course Governor Kotick was not happy about this. The governor did not authorize these troops. The federalization was done without the consent of the governor of Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Governor Gavin Newsom, called the move a breathtaking abuse of the law and power, and accused Trump of using the military as a political weapon. So, as things are starting to continue, there seems to be we're kind of at a stalemate right now because there's this order is in place. Actually, just before I went downstairs to do the show with you, I saw on the news that Stephen Miller said that this order is a judicial insurrection, like whatever that means. You know what I mean? It's a judicial insurrection.
That's crazy.
And Trump has been talking about invoking the Insurrection Act in response to this. So
Big
this is
babies.
scary stuff.
Yeah.
This is scary stuff. And also sort of right now what we're seeing, I want to talk about briefly because it's so related. They're trying to send troops into Chicago as well, and Governor Pritzker in Illinois, is also fighting back. And seemingly, you have Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas,
Yeah.
who is, deploying or authorizing the deployment of the Texas National Guard and all these other troops, and actually Pritzker and Abbott got into a fight on Twitter about it a little bit. So this is just truly, truly, truly scary stuff. And what I really want to focus on with this story is not so much the troops that are marching through our cities, and that in itself is even a crazy sentence to say. I'm not going to focus on the troops marching through our city. Like that in
Yeah.
itself is crazy. And of course that is of course awful, and it's not the proper use of our military or our National Guard. We live in a country where the laws are enforced by civilians, and
Yep.
not by the military.
Yep.
But the reason why I say I don't want to focus on this is I think what is equally as important to focus on is just sort of how I'm worried we are backsliding,
Mm-hmm.
as a country.
Agreed. Yeah.
If you sort of take out the individual actors, the facts that the troops are on the street, and you just sort of look at the broader trends that we're facing right now, the sort of the trends that are indicative of authoritarian countries, and countries that that may hold elections, but are not free, that are not free countries. I think we're
Yeah.
starting to see a lot of similarities. We have the National Guard in our streets doing domestic law enforcement. We have
Mm.
Stephen Miller attacking the independent judiciary. Stephen Miller attacking sort of this basic idea of judicial review, where the courts get to say what is lawful and what isn't,
Yeah.
and that's sort of that's a basic attack. That's one of the basic building blocks and basic safeguards of democracy. That's under attack. Um,
So
so
I
there's
see
just
right here
so many.
too. There was something about. One second, let me fix my mic a little bit. There's something about a California military department filed a notice that about 300 guard personnel will remain federalized through January. Kind of like
Yes.
um, complicating the state's ability to reclaim them. I didn't even know like that's how the
Yeah.
National Guard worked, but that kind of makes sense. So
Yeah.
now they're all
So
federalized.
yeah. So certain states they're federalized. So
Mm-hmm.
when Trump brought the troops into L.A., he
Mm-hmm.
federalized the California National Guard.
I see.
And then when they were like, and then when he tried to do the same with Oregon, and the judge said no, he's like, okay, we'll just send the California troops north, like just kind of like to get away,
Yeah,
to get around the whole thing,
that's crazy.
So Um, yeah, it's just sort of crazy everything that's going on right now, sort of the Democratic backsliding, and what we need to keep an eye on
Hmm.
as American citizens is we have to make sure that, you know, we need to make sure that these basic building blocks in our society, judicial review, independent judiciary, elections, freedom of speech, all of these sort of basic fundamental principles that hold up democracy. We need to make sure that those are preserved
Yep.
and keep an eye on as things keep happening, as Stephen Miller keeps talking, as troops keep getting deployed. Just keep an eye on about how each one of those actions is meant to strip away some sort of fundamental building block of our society, and that's what we really need to be concerned about.
Yeah.
Is not about what's happening today with the
Hmm.
National Guard, but what's going to be happening tomorrow with the National Guard, and that's a scary sentence to say, but um, I would I'd be being disingenuous, if I said I wasn't worried.
Yeah. Agreed.
What do you think, Liam?
Me and Tommy were talking before, like when it happened in D.C. We talked about it because it was an authoritarian step. They were kind of testing the waters, like I was saying before. I do think that there is something about him trying to test the waters of controlling these democratically controlled cities, and basically seeing if he can control them maybe for an election so he can be elected 3 times. Just my opinion. It's probably what's going to happen, but
Yeah,
it's
and
disgusting.
and if you compare, I talked about this briefly in the first section. In the past, the federal guard, the National Guard has been federalized for correct and proper purposes. Like, during the civil rights movement, they were, um, you know, they were blocking African Americans from gaining entry into Southern schools, Southern universities, and John F. Kennedy, Eisenhower, like the presidents at the time in the 50s and 60s during the civil rights movements, they had the courage to say, listen, you know, segregation, Jim Crow is unconstitutional, and we are going to there was at that time in the 50s and 60s there was the executive, the president had to take a necessary step to enforce that Supreme Court order and that ruling, so there has been historical analogs where it's been appropriate to federalize the National Guard, but compare that to today. You know what I mean? That's what's truly crazy.
Agreed. And like history books will show it. I can't wait. They're really gonna have to show all of this craziness that has been going on. So I'm fine with it. It'll be interesting to see, in my opinion. So
It's absolutely crazy.
it is. And people that voted for him are gonna have to know that for the rest of their lives, and reading about it in the future, and why other countries are saying this does lead to authoritarianism. There's a lot of history to it. I'm ready to go into a local topic one if you are, Tommy.
Yep.
All right. Thank you guys for watching, by the way. Make sure you drop a like if you're enjoying the content. Helps us out with that YouTube algorithm. Our first local is that a bill by Republican Thomas is to end public pension pickup. Um, on October 4th, State's Rep. David Thomas, Republican from Jefferson, introduced House Bill 473, aimed at ending the practice of pension pickup by public employees in Ohio. The pension pickup means that if a public employer pays not only its share of retirement contributions, but also the employee's share, effectively subsidizing part of what the employee ought to pay themselves. Which I actually never knew they had that, which is really nice. A lot of people say, what's benefits of working for the state? That's definitely one of them. My 401k is a minimum of 4 or 5%. I do 8. Some people like to do more. I'm young, so right now I do 8, but a lot of people do 20. So all depends on what you want to save. But we're paying into that. That gets paid by the state. What the bill would do would ban pension pickup under House Bill 473. After it becomes effective, no public employer may absorb the employee's share of contributions to the state pension systems, or OPRAs. Applies to new contracts only, but change will only affect contracts signed after the law takes effect, grandfathering in existing contracts. For the legislative process, though, is now assigned to the Public Insurance and Pensions Committee, awaiting its first hearing. For Representative Thomas's rationale behind it is that transparency and accountability. He argues that this change will force full disclosure of comprehension costs. If employers pay the employee share, the true cost is hidden from the taxpayers. Uniformity across jurisdictions. He claims the practice creates unfair competition. Some public bodies can lower employees via generous benefits rather than salary. That's fair. That's always been the case. His first thing, too, is interesting because you could look up all of the state OPRs and pensions. You could look up for money. After 68 years, I think, is the newest OPR's pension, at least for what I was looking at. And it'll tell you how much money you would get. So it's not like it's hidden from taxpayers. They just have to do more math and be like, well, if a state has this many employees and they're paying, this amount of money over 30 years, how much are they actually paying? And then that's all of them. There's a philosophical stance. Ohioans should not be paying for personal pension expenses of public employees, point blank, Thomas stated, which is kind of weird because they do for him. They pay for his pension. They pay for his salary as well. So I don't really agree with that philosophical stance. It is one thing that always has helped the state. The state just probably wants to put the money somewhere else. Current reality and implications. The existing practice. Many Ohioan public employers currently pay both the employee portions of the public contributions, effectively picking up the employer's share. That's definitely a benefit if you're making less money. Hidden costs, because those contributions are paid by the employee. Full compensation packages for public servants are less visible to the taxpayers. You could always see how much they're making as well. There's a bunch of websites. For state runs one, but then there's some private websites too that you could look up every year how much everyone at the state's looking up. You just search their last name and you find it. Some governments use this benefit to attract and retain employees, especially in high demanding roles, raising concerns about a benefits arm race. And I did see a study last week how this is the first time in a while where it's actually better to stay at a company for your first 10 years. For a long time, it was better to move companies your first 5 or 10 years because then your pay would always go up. But maybe it's because of how bonuses and raises are perceived now. It's actually better to stay at a place. So with that, you kind of do want people to stay at the state. You don't want them going and trying to take a better pay, and they're thinking 401ks are better. 401ks are good. They have pluses and minuses for both of them. But definitely if you get it paid, you portion paid for in, that's a great benefit. And I'm fine with paying that tax, paying higher taxes for that. There's been pushback from public agencies. Local government and school districts may argue removing a pickup make it harder to recruit or retain qualified personnel, especially in smaller or rural jurisdictions, especially for schools. I mean, if a teacher's making $35,000 a year, do you really expect them? And pensions are different, OPRs is different. It's based on money, not percentages, I think. But 5% of their pay, 8% of their pay into savings, it's going to be harder for them. So I kind of like that. That more, if you respect teachers, pay them well. And we don't pay them well, so give them other benefits. Transition management, how to phase out pickups in a way that doesn't claw back benefits already promised or undermine existing contracts. There's a fiscal load shift. Employees would assume a larger share of pension contributions, effectively a wage cut if not offset, and not, higher wages because of that. This could spark objections from public employee unions and associations, because there's still a lot of unions in the state of Ohio that work for the state of Ohio. And then equity concerns. Like I said before, low-paid public employees would feel the impact more acutely. Paying a percentage of a salary might hit them harder than higher earners. Exactly. Legislative hurdle. This bill must survive committee floor votes and possible amendments, so nothing is really guaranteed yet. And why it matters locally. Representative district includes Trumbull County. Representative Thomas represents parts of Trumbull. So his proposal especially relevant to the local governments, school boards, and public employees in our area. With budget stresses, local governments already face tight budgets, especially how county and federal has been clawing back money. If employees' pensions shift, it might save in some places, but it might save in some places, but create recruitment problems in others. And especially if you lose a lot of people, training people costs a lot of money. And then for citizens, this bill raises a question: what is the real cost of public compensation? Every taxpayer should know how much their taxes go into the base pay versus fringe benefits like pension support. Once again, the state could provide us those numbers very easily, or even like WFMJ, WKBN, news stations could do the math if they need to. How do you feel about this, Tommy?
You know, if I was Dave Thomas, first I'll say two things about Dave Thomas. Uh, Dave Thomas hates education. Okay, he really hates education. Okay, he has been on just a roll on trying to screw over our schools, our everything. Sort of trying to really sort of devalue and make our system of local government unworkable.
He was a part of the anti-education bill.
I'm sure he voted for it. But what he's doing right now, with regards to property taxes, just taxes in general, it's overwhelmingly negative, for our schools, for our local communities. So, it's sort of interesting to see that, Dave Thomas is not talking about his main sort of goal, which is again to destroy public education in the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to say is, if I was Dave Thomas, I would be very, very worried. Like you're pushing bills like these, your constituents. Keep in mind, that his district is Northern Trumbull and Ashtabula. It's like Dave Thomas, Representative Thomas, your constituents, the significant number of farmers that you represent, they can't sell their soybeans because of your party. So I would like to see David Thomas, let's have him knock on some doors on some Ashtabula farms or some Northern Trumbull farms and say, hi, my name's Dave Thomas. This is the bill I'm introducing. But by the way, because of me, you can't sell your crops. Have a good day. It's just crazy. So, I don't put much, stock in anything Dave Thomas does, because his main concern is just undermine public education, and I just don't think he's effectively representing or serving his constituents, so it's crazy.
Yep. I agree with that. And now I know that he's more anti-education. It kind of shows why he wants to do this, because it will hurt schools as well. A lot of them teachers might want to go to charter schools or private schools that pay more money, and you don't have to worry about, paying in your pension when you make $35,000 a year. So.
Yeah.
All right. You ready to go into National 2?
Yeah. So this is another interesting story. So Pete Hegseth, our Secretary of Defense, tried to trigger some people there on purpose. Our Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, uses a rare meeting of the generals to announce new military standards. So this happened last week in Quantico, Virginia. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called over like 800 generals and admirals to Quantico, Virginia, for sort of what could best be described as political rally. He was joined by our dear leader, Donald Trump, who then proceeded to, along with Hegseth, sort of said, you could get up and leave. You could get up and leave. You might lose your rank, but you could get up and leave. So the whole meeting was just sort of designed to show these people who's really in charge. Show the military brass. Who's really in charge. So,
which is crazy that they told him that, because Because if they're trying to adopt these highest military, like highest male standards, it just reminds me very
Yeah,
authoritarian back in the day. Like I can't wait.
yeah. So I'm going into that next. Is of course this meeting was filled with culture war bullshit. In an attempt to um, discredit the American military and just sort of everything that Joe Biden has ever done. So in the Hegseth again, I already talked about it. It was sort of overtly political. It was threatening. It was designed to tell the military generals and admirals who's really in charge. But Hegseth laid out some crazy changes. Adopting the highest male standard in combat training and physical fitness. Um, eliminating or sharply reducing programs tied to gender or race-based considerations, uh, tightening grooming and fitnessing requirements, um, instituting biannual physical tests for generals, overhauling, unit discipline, rules of engagements, um, you know, and Hegseth and the president, we're trying to do all this stuff, in a way to distance themselves and discredit President Joe Biden with his efforts to um you know with his efforts as commander in chief. um this is crazy, and this is also incredibly stupid. Okay, so it's crazy for what I just laid out, being it was overtly political and all that. It's also incredibly stupid because the military broadly already operates on this. So um we have male and female combat soldiers, and there is like one standard, okay, that people can make to go into combat. Okay, that is true. But also that's also kind of besides the point, okay?
Hmm.
Because in the US military, like Pete Hegseth is talking, he's talking about like, we're gonna, adopting the highest male standards. Um, that is completely unnecessary for a modern military, because not everybody is a frontline combat soldier. Okay, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yep.
Um, you know, our soldiers, they need people to support them. They need logistics. Like there's like 10 logistics people for every soldier. Like it's insane. It's insane. But again, in an attempt to sort of again undermine Joe Biden, undermine our institutions, um, in an effort to put pressure on
Hmm.
the generals, they're just making shit up. They're
And
just
to
making
like,
shit up. The military.
yeah.
The military was woke. The military was woke. It wasn't woke. Okay?
Mm.
And, the fact of the matter is, we need a military that, encourages diversity, encourages, physical fitness, which is already true. Like obviously we need our frontline combat soldiers to be incredibly physical fit. And anybody should be able to be a frontline combat soldier if they pass the test. But that's how it's already been. Okay? And then
Hmm.
just sort of
Yep.
undermining these other roles in the US military that do not require crazy physical fitness. Cooks, medics, logistics people,
Because Tom,
data
it's not even
analytics.
that. It's like how war's changing to me. Because I've seen
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people, like even military people, or people be like, my husband said, and he was in the military, that like they're fine with this. But if your husband or you were in the military and you were in infantry, armory, things that were front line, that is different than like Tommy's saying, being a medic or not even that. A lot of it's drones.
Yeah.
Because I'm
Yeah.
sorry, who would you rather have be a drone pilot? A nerd or someone who's physically fit? Well, the nerd's gonna
Yeah.
hit the drone strike right on the head. The physically fit guy's gonna hit a hospital. I mean, let's be realistic about it. Like that's literally how detailed it is. You're dropping a bomb from a drone with an Xbox controller. Do you really think you want people that are so physically fit having cramps and are shaking because of all the stimulants they're taking pre-workout? Like it, you want the best people for those positions. So and it
Right.
blows my mind. Like did they really think that SEAL Team 6 was Gravy Team 6 before, and like six fatties? Like that's not how it goes. Like people on the front lines aren't a 4-star general,
Right.
30 years in the military, who might be obese because he's 55. Like, I mean, come on, guys. He like sits at a desk all day. Like, who cares?
Do you know how bad shit has to be going for a general to pick up a gun and fight? You know what I mean? Like if that happens, that's how
I
you
wonder
know
when the
like
last time that
like
actually happened. Yeah, in American military combat, probably never. Revolutionary War,
like
Civil
I'm
War,
sure
maybe.
like back in the day, they led their soldiers into combat stuff. But like if there's a general today that's fighting, like that literally means the Russians are like 200 feet away from us. You know
Yep,
what I
yeah.
mean?
For
Like we
Russians,
got
for
bigger
Russians are in the
problems.
White House and the Pentagon.
Right, like that's like that's how we know. But it's just crazy again, and this is the playbook of the Trump administration. It's they're inflecting, they're putting culture war stuff in here that's completely unnecessary, not true. We have an effective military, and they're just trying to discredit that for their own political purposes.
Like how
And
many people in
it's
military that
just
work in intelligence? Like, if you're not a spy, you don't really need to be fit. If you're sitting at a desk all day working for the NSA,
exactly
listening to foreign and American citizens, yuck yuck, you don't need to be fit. It's crazy.
right. And those rules need to be respected. And if you impose crazy requirements on those roles, it's actually counterintuitive. Like it's actually counterintuitive.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
this is just crazy. So with this story, again, it has two components: the crazy sort of culture war stuff that is just made up to try to breed divisiveness and attack our institutions, but also sort of the other part of the story was the president coming up and say like, I'm in charge, you can leave, I'll fire you. That's
Hmm.
crazy authoritarian, which is also scary. So
Hmm.
this was sort of an overview of the shit show at Quantico.
Crazy to
And
me, Tommy. And like, it shows how much Pete Hegseth, like, did he actually ever serve?
I think he did. Yeah, I think he was like an infantryman or
Because like,
something.
it's crazy. Like, he
Now,
should know. He should know that, like, if he was in like Afghanistan, Iraq, a lot of the times, like, they couldn't save. You know what I mean? It's a time thing. They're not really like at a base sometimes. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy to me. Cause yeah, look up photos of Chris Kyle back in the day. Dude had a beard.
yeah,
You know what I mean? A lot of these guys have
and
beards, so it's like what's going on?
yeah, I'm totally in favor of beards in the military. I've heard actually people talk about this in the context of recruitment. We have an all volunteer military, which is absolutely critical.
Hmm.
That is also one of those fundamental building blocks,
Yeah,
of a free society is a volunteer military.
yeah. It works for the police
And
too. I saw like for Drud police chief interim guy said like they removed no beards and it's helped morale and it's helped recruitment too, like getting new cops faster.
right now, there's certain situations in the military where no facial hair because like they're working with gas masks and stuff like
Yeah,
like
water
that makes
masks and
sense.
stuff. Yep.
But the no, you have to be clean shaven to be in the military. That's
Yeah.
stupid.
Like
That
like
doesn't
like
just
like,
hurt
like we don't
turnout
we
and
don't
hurt.
want like fat bastard. We don't want Larry the Cable Guy protecting the president. There's always speculations. There's always, you know what I mean, like for certain things like I was saying with infantry. So it's just people are so like 0 or 100, black or white, and a lot of stuff's in the gray area, 50, 75, 25%.
Yeah. Well, that's all I had to say about this.
Huh?
It was such a shit show. It's kind of hard to keep together. You know what I mean?
It is, and like
But
some of
do you have
it
anything
too.
else that?
Like I am fine with like woke in the military, even though it's not
Yeah.
woke. It's just literally being freaking fair. It blows my mind because
Exactly.
like I'm sorry if you weren't given black um, GIs after World War II, the GI Bill, if they had to work and fight in segregated battalions, like yeah, maybe do give them promotions a certain percent higher. Like that's literally it sometimes, and like a lot of it, like we always talk about with diversity, is if I was in an office room with 100 people, and that 100 people are split up how America is, that's great, still diverse. But if it was split up equally between all of those races, it would be more diverse, and I'd have more diverse solutions, different solutions, because if we just do America, we have a lot of white people. A lot of white people have white people mindset. That's how it works. And I'm not saying like every race has a mindset. It's about how you grow up. So a lot of people, white people, grow up in white families, white
Yeah.
communities. Obviously, your culture, um, and that mindset is my mindset. So if I'm in a room with more people that aren't like me, I'm gonna get answers that I don't really might not think of, can't think of because of my past experiences. You kind of want that in the military. You know what I mean? You want equal treatment of everyone. Who like let's say you're attacking someone, you want opinions on everyone, not just let's say someone who's you're not attacking. You know what I mean? If you're only attacking Palestine and you're only asking Israel, like okay, well it shows what you're doing.
Yeah. That's particularly important in the officer corps. We
Mm-hmm.
need, diversity in our officers. Like you're saying, you have 100 people, all lined up. Every one of those people's gonna have a different experience, based on their upbringing, etc. And that's so incredibly important, like in the boardroom, and it's just so important to avoid groupthink.
Yep,
like of
that's it
course in the
too. Yeah.
military at the lower ranks, like follow orders. You know what I mean? But like certainly, that sort of diversity and in the leadership and the people that are making that are calling the shots
Mm-hmm.
in the military, that's certainly critical. And any sort of effort to undermine the military under Joe Biden is weak or woke. It's just simply not true. We had a military under Joe Biden that was strong and effective, and
Mm-hmm.
it also respected people.
Yep.
So
And
just
I'm happy you said
crazy what's going on.
groupthink too, because I mean it could stop war crimes.
Yeah.
For the Middle East, Abu Ghraib, a lot of our war crimes, shooting medics and stuff like that is just crazy. But if you have
It's like, hey,
officers with
maybe we
proper
shouldn't do this.
groupthink, you're set. Hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's just human nature, man. It's just human nature.
Mhm. And it's
You
sad
know?
because like I wonder if more people die, if more like American soldiers and the citizens of other countries we're in war with will die because like we have less educated people in these roles if they only care about brawn. Because once again, uh, brains will always beat brawn. It's not like after World War II we said, hey, who's the biggest, strongest Nazis? Come to America. We said, who's the smartest Nazis? Come to America. We need to go to the moon and we need to make nukes, baby. So like it's always been in military who's smarter wins, especially now with like AI and all these drones a part of the military. But I'm ready to go into our last topic tonight, which will be a little bit quicker. Hope everyone's enjoyed the show so far. Drop a like if you have. Facebook in the description. Follow us on there. Is our local topic too. It's about how officials expect a low election turnout. In Mahoning and Trumbull counties, local election directors warned that turnout for the November 4th, 2024 general election is likely to be very low, possibly even lower than a typical for an odd year local election. With no state or federal races on the ballot, interest is weak, and officials are concerned about voter apathy. Key statistics and projections, actually, for Trumbull County, for projected turnout from the Tribune is 20%. The past turnout in 2023 being 48.8% and 22.37% in 2021. Thing that passed COVID, no one was voting. Mahoning, 22%. Past turnouts was at 47.8% in 2023 and 25.07% in 2021. Those 2023 turnouts were likely driven by state issues on the ballot, abortion amendment, and marijuana legislation. A lot of people went to vote for that, so that makes sense why they're a lot higher. By contrast, this election has only local offices and levies, no high-profile or statewide federal races to boost engagement or ballots to vote for. What's on the ballot and why it still matters? Voters would choose school board members, township trustees, city or village council, and possibly local levies. These are down ballot races. Yep. The stakes are tangible: roads, police and fire services, local governance, um, daily life decisions for residents. Uh, go on that a lot of times with who you vote on these boards, and sometimes the levies too. If there's a levy for your school board, they need money. Your fire department, they need money. I always like voting for levies, especially if they're parks, but that's just me. Yet for local election directors, say information and interests are lacking. Very few new voter registrations and not much buzz about it. Dates and voting schedules. Early voting runs at County Board of Elections during several windows in October with variable hours. I know, like, Trumbull County, Mahoning County Democrats, and I bet even the Republicans now post them on Facebook. No early voting on October 13th for Columbus Day, but extended hours later in the month. Polls will open at 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. on November 4th, which is Election Day. And if you're showing up to vote, you will need a photo ID for early in-person or polling place voting, unless voting by mail or absentee with proper identification. The last day for in-person registration or to update registration is Monday before Election Day. It's the final night to register. That's kind of it. My kind of input on this is kind of already what I said. Like, if there's not many things people care about, people really cared about abortion and marijuana, especially the liberals in Ohio, because we knew, hey, if we actually vote on this and we get some Republicans to vote with us, we're going to win this easily. And they ended up doing it. So we really told the state, hey, we know what we want, and they were trying to change it. But with right now, I kind of get it, but levies are very important. I'll see what kind of local levies you guys have going on. Especially with school boards too. If you have family going for school boards or people you like, vote for them. There's a ton of people all over Gerard, signs everywhere, council signs everywhere. I know we voted for council a little bit earlier in this year too. Maybe it was last year. It was earlier this year in May, I believe. So kind of sucks, but I'll be going and voting just because I kind of like voting for those local councils and stuff.
I'll be voting as well, and a lot of people don't realize just how critical local government is to their everyday lives. City council, township trustees, even our local judges, municipal court judges, these sorts of elected officials, these sorts of policies that they decide on, have in many respects a lot more of a larger impact on our lives than what's coming out of the federal government. Right. So I just encourage everyone to go out and vote this upcoming November 4th. And
Tommy, I agree with that. It's interesting. Like, to me, people think of a balance of power in the government like an upside down triangle and the federal government at the top. Like, they're just the biggest. But like, where you live, it's actually a triangle the other way. Federal has the least amount and local does. What affects you? Like, unless we're living in DC, and me and Tommy don't live in DC, we don't got that money yet. Maybe I can get paid by like Plantier or someone eventually. But like, when you live locally, the local things really matter. If federal money that comes to locals, they could waste it, or they could very improve, very help downtowns, help out other areas of a community. Schools is what we saw with a lot of COVID money. So yeah, 100%. Your voice matters a lot more. It's easier to talk to council and actually see your council member face to face. It's kind of hard to do that with a representative or a state senator or a federal senator.
Yeah, and if sort of the daily interactions we have with our government. We're driving on local roads. Like we're driving on local roads maintained by our county. You were just at a city council meeting today, or a village council meeting today.
Yep.
Discussing economic development issues. These sorts of small time decisions. Well, in the grand scheme of things, when we're talking about the building blocks of our democratic society, in the grand scheme of things, that they're small, but the personal effects that they have on us are perhaps greater than we give them credit for. So I just encourage people to go out there and vote on November 4th. Or before.
Yep, early voting's key as well. Before we go, though, that's it for me on this topic. Is this it for you, Tommy?
That is it for me.
All right, real quick. Trump announced he is considering pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. He announced it in the Oval Office. So we'll see if he actually goes through it. That would be crazy if so. That would be very sad. I don't want him to do that, and obviously I don't think a lot of people on the right want him to do that. But anything that's a distraction from him being a part of it, or people realizing how bad his economy is doing right now, good excuses.
I did
for
see
the sides.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't even know how to comment on that because it's so crazy. You know what I mean? Like Donald Trump's considering pardoning Maxwell, who is a who's a convicted like sexual predator.
Mhm.
You know, like I don't know, like what do I even have to say at this point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I
Hopefully
don't,
he
I don't
doesn't.
know.
That's all I could say. We know what's probably gonna happen.
I don't know. Like it's so crazy. I'm so tired this year with this news.
We grinding out here,
But
doing it
hopefully
for
that
the
does
local
not
community.
happen. Hopefully that does not happen, and hopefully they release the damn Epstein files.
Yep, with Trump in it,
Um,
not redacted.
Whole thing.
Well, that's it for me, guys. We'll be here Thursday for our Northeast Ohio sports. So hopefully Hunter can make it this week. Had a lot of sports happening last week with NASCAR, F1, Singapore. Had a bunch of NBA, and NFL, and then also hockey starts tomorrow. So make sure you're watching that. Penguins play. Excited for that. That's it for me tonight, guys. We'll be back here in a week on Monday at 8:30, like how we always are, with our 2 local and 2 national topics. Make sure you drop a like, Facebook in the description. Drop any comments if you have them. They always pop up on my phone. I could comment back to you later. That's it for me. Have a good night, everyone, and good night, Youngstown.
Thank you, everybody.